You can wake up at 5 a.m. to train 90 minutes, 6 days a week. You can do all the cardio, you can do all the resistance training, and it does not matter if you're not focusing on these other areas. Let's dive into it. So there was a time in my life when I was training 6 days a week, 90 minutes per workout. I was balancing cardio. I was lean, but I also felt like I was dying. It was actually when I was on that path that I told my parents I did not think I'd make it to my 25th birthday. I didn't say that jokingly, like I legitimately thought I was on the path of dying. It was just my journey to Barrett's esophagus. I won't go through the whole story. You guys have heard that before, but again, I was doing all the things that made me look and look healthy. I was taking the supplements that were extremely unhealthy, unregulated. It was just a situation where I was putting all of this time into how my body looked and not into my overall health, which was kind of the norm. 25 years old, just want to get lean, want to get jacked, want to, go out and have a good time. But that was kind of the point where I was redlining my body. Parties every day, smoking weed, drinking a ton of alcohol. I probably drank more alcohol in 2 years than most people do in their entire lives. Ridiculously unregulated supplements, Jack 3D. I was literally going even beyond their recommendation on that label. So it was like, don't take more than 3 scoops, like 4 days a week, and don't have any other caffeine throughout the time you're taking this. I was 3 scoops every single day, probably 7 days a week, plus a cup of coffee or 2 because it stopped having an effect on me and it just melted my insides on top of everything else I was doing. So I didn't pay attention to recovery. I was just focused on the aesthetic, on the goal of, getting big, strong, lean. Very minimal sleep. My sympathetic nervous system was highly active. Very minimal time with that parasympathetic nervous system activated, actually focusing on healing, on recovery. And my nervous system as a whole was a big spider web, a tangled mess during this entire thing while all this was going on. So clearly not taking care of myself, and that shows, you can look very healthy and be very unhealthy. It's not about focusing on the number. It's not about focusing on, I'm going to get to this level of X, Y, or Z when we're not prioritizing internal health.
Well, just look at any bodybuilder. I mean, we did a whole episode on this, but bodybuilding is not a healthy sport. Yeah, they look like they're super jacked and super lean on stage and they look great, but when you see them backstage after, like, they do not look the least bit healthy, and they're not. They're committing to hopefully a short-term goal where they look a certain way, and at that they're sacrificing health to look that certain way. And oftentimes they have to get super low calorie. They're not eating a variety of different nutrients, fiber, all of that, because their only goal is to look like a bodybuilder.
They are extreme athletes, so they are going to extremes to achieve that aesthetic. Now, that's obviously the example under a microscope. Like, it's the easiest microcosm to kind of assess and it's like, yeah, that's not healthy. But in a way, we're all trying to do that. We're all fighting for that look. Oh, I'm not comfortable. I'm not confident. I wish I looked this way like my favorite influencer. But they're not even, a lot of times, to that extreme as the microcosm. They don't take the concept of overall health. It's, I am trying to win a pro card in this sport, so I'm willing to sacrifice in X, Y, and Z area. And they know that. A lot of times those following them don't understand that and the things they had to do that are unhealthy to achieve that point.
Well, let's even take the average fitness influencer, maybe not somebody doing bodybuilding, just somebody, selling their programs, or they look really awesome on social media. You don't know what they're doing in their life. And oftentimes they're going to commit to looking a certain way because that is their job. Their job is to sell you the program or the meal plan or whatever it is. And at the expense of looking that way, they may have crap mental health. Their mindset in regard to training and nutrition might completely suck. And there's a lot of hidden things that even if maybe they are generally healthy, there's oftentimes when they're at that extreme level, something lagging to let them get to that extreme level and staying there. Now, I'm not saying that you can't achieve a great physique and look your best while also feeling your best, because I think we're both at a point where we both feel like we look our best and feel our best and are thriving in all areas. Maybe we'll talk about that after. But I'm saying to get to the super extreme where, you have younger girls in their 20s just trying to get a six-pack or a bigger butt or whatever it is, they're gonna have to see a loss somewhere else
for a bigger butt.
Maybe not a bigger butt, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like when your only focus is on that external thing, that becomes your obsession. That becomes like, okay, what do I have to do to get here? Even if that's spending 6-7 days a week in the gym for 2 hours. I hate this. I don't want to go to the gym for 2 hours every day, but I'm going to, because that's going to get me the results. And a lot of people just ignore every other aspect of their health, their mental health, enjoyment of working out for other reasons to achieve that goal. That's all I was trying to say.
And the irony of it is that most people don't understand that when you feel good, a lot of times you're very happy with how you look as well. So we'll chase a look and not care how we feel rather than chase a feeling that will lead to the look. So it's just a little bit ironic, but that's kind of the point of needing to stop chasing the number on the scale, stop focusing on the number itself. And when we stop doing that, we can then kind of embrace the lifestyle. And that's really the point of what we're kind of trying to get at here. You have to build this into a lifestyle. You can't do something for a short period of time and expect to maintain that for the rest of your life. You stop maintaining the protocol, you stop maintaining the result. So that's why rather than doing this 90-day challenge, this extreme workout plan, this extreme diet, you have to make sure that it makes sense. Some variation of this makes sense and fits within your lifestyle for the long term. You wouldn't marry somebody who you only planned on seeing for the next 90 days. So why would you try to affect your life with a program over the next 90 days and think that's going to have an impact on the rest of your life? It just doesn't make sense. So part of that is also learning what true moderation is. So it's not just what are the things that I'm going to do regularly, but what are the things that I need to limit a bit to be able to achieve optimal health. And that doesn't mean cut out entirely. It means understanding true moderation. We've talked about this on several episodes, but very quickly, when it comes to nutrition, as an easy example, moderation isn't a little bit of something every single day. It's waiting until you actually have that craving and then make it a special occasion. And then, you don't leave it in the house so you can have little bits and pieces here and there. You go out and you get it because you actually really wanted it. You enjoy it and you get back to work after that. So true moderation as far as balancing lifestyle in regards to nutrition. And that's probably the hardest part, not just exclusive to nutrition, but finding that balance within your lifestyle. What makes sense? What allows you to progress, to feel really good, to be comfortable with how you look, confident in how you look, but also isn't taking away from all those other things that you're doing.
Yeah, I think if you're listening to this and you're like, well, crap, I've only been focusing on the external up until this point. Like, I would argue that's probably 99% of people why they start exercising is because they want to change how they look externally. So
and they also assume when they look better, they're going to be healthier.
Yeah. So don't freak out if that is you. But I think an interesting mindset shift does happen. Like, I think back to when I started really lifting and focusing on, training the right way. It was always about how can I get the best pump? How can I change how this muscle group looks? And how can I change my, I didn't have or care really about any of the other benefits of lifting. It was always just about while I'm doing the bicep curl, staring at my, I'm not saying that's wrong, but just literally trying to change and mentally focus on those areas. And that's it. There was nothing else for me. And then over time, I think right before we got pregnant, or maybe even when I started powerlifting, you just start to see the benefits and see everything else that you can focus on and how you can feel from the same thing, but it just is giving you so much more, and it's so much more enjoyable when you do make that mindset switch. And it's not, I say mindset switch, and I think sometimes people are like, well, give me some tips to have that mindset switch. It's work, it's progress. It's something that does not happen overnight, but it's something that kind of builds. And as you go through this journey and this experience, it slowly starts to happen when you realize what it takes to actually make this a lifestyle.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Can't be a fad. It can't feel like a chore to you. And that's right. You really have to dive into figuring out what program, what protocols you enjoy, what adds value to the rest of your life, and understanding, okay, there's a variation of this that I can continue to apply for the rest of my life. So let's say right now you're training 5 days a week, and then the kids are home from school for the summer, so it's 3 or 4 days a week. That's okay. You understand how to train. You understand what you need to do in that time to achieve an objective. So jumping back to nutrition, are you going to follow keto and then jump to diet X and then diet Y and then diet Z because, oh, this is working for other people right now. I just read about it. I just saw it on social media. That's a fad. You cannot jump from diet to diet. You cannot jump from, one extreme to the next over and over and over. You're not creating sustainable change. There is no one thing you need to subscribe to that's going to be the magic bullet for you. And if you're chasing that magic bullet, you're going to be spinning your tires for the rest of your life. You have to kind of slow down, take a deep breath, and figure out, okay, what eating patterns do I enjoy? What eating patterns make me feel the best? And then you kind of maintain that or adjust it, fine tune it based on your current goal at that point in time. But all of this, we try to eliminate the verbiage of plan, of even program, of challenge. We'll talk about lifestyle. We'll talk about habits. We'll talk about protocols, because those are things that you, even from a mental standpoint, just think of differently than a plan, a program, or a challenge. Those 3 things are short term, whereas a lifestyle and a protocol are things, and habit are things you will do for the rest of your life. And they might alter, they might change, but you'll do them for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I mean, you're going to go through different phases of life where things do need to drastically change. Like maybe you go through your first pregnancy and maybe you are throwing up every single day in the first 14 weeks. Like, yeah, your training is probably going to look a lot different than it has previously. But what are the small things that you can hold on to every day? What are the tiny things that you can do? And I think that's really where this becomes a lifestyle too, and where people finally understand, okay, like I cannot just be so rigid in my approach here. I have to learn how to pivot, learn how to adapt, but still implement the things that I know are going to make me feel my best in every single season, even if those seasons are vastly different. So that really is something I want to just drive home. Like, you're going to go through those different phases of life, and all of these things need to sometimes adjust and adapt to those phases, but they don't ever need to go away completely.
Now, all that said, we have got several episodes on each of our 5 pillars. So that, I'll take a step back for a second. That's why we created the SDE Method Blueprint. The blueprint is 5 pillars, your 5 pillars of optimal health: training, nutrition, mindset, movement, habits. We've got a ton of episodes breaking a bunch of those down, intermingling them. We're not going to go through specific protocols. The point of today is to give you some targets. So no universal plan, but what are specific targets you can be aiming for? So we'll go through some things. And the point of that is to understand there's 1,000 different ways to get to each of these. You don't have to do X, Y, or Z to achieve these, but these are some areas you can work towards. Start measuring as baselines where you are right now. Work towards these. So some of these are minimums we'll outline. Some of these are optimal ranges, but we'll kind of clarify as we go throughout. We're going to throw a whole bunch at you. Big old list. So cardio, very generally, at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity, 75 minutes of vigorous activity per week.
Yeah. So if you're going harder with your cardio and you like to do HIIT, for example, you don't need as many minutes as somebody who maybe likes to do zone 2 or even bleeding into zone 3. You can kind of get away with less because it's more intense. So figure out what modes and methods of cardio you enjoy. You don't have to run. Running is having its moment right now. And I got messages from people like, how do I start running and enjoying it? Like, you might not ever enjoy running. You have to find the type of cardio that you do enjoy and that you can stick with. Because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to stick with it.
And this is also scheduling, right? So if you're a busy parent and you work 60 hours a week, whatever it is, you might not have that extra 150 minutes to do moderate intensity. So you might blast out 10, 15 minutes a day of some type of HIIT, regardless what it is. So again, giving you some targets, you guys can find your way to these. Movement, very generally, 10,000 steps per day. We did give more context to this specific one in the last episode. So we're going to stand pat on that. 10,000 has become a bit of a controversy. Oh, it doesn't need to be 10,000 steps.
I think it's a good, fair number.
It's a good number. There's optimal benefits in regards to that. The more you move, the more benefit you're going to get from that.
So don't use that as a limit. If you're doing more and you can do more, do more. That's great.
And especially if you're doing 150 minutes a week of cardio, like that's going to add up to that each day. So you go run a couple miles, that's 4,000 steps.
I think the biggest thing too, though, is don't run a couple miles and sit on your butt the whole rest of the day. Like try to get up and move a little bit. It doesn't have to be 1,000 steps at a time, but the more you move throughout the day, that's going to benefit you also.
And that is specifically why movement is its own pillar. It's not just, you can be sedentary training 6 days a week. You can be sedentary running every single day if you go right back to your desk and then you go home and you go sit on the couch and you go to bed.
That's not healthy.
Not healthy. Resistance training, minimum, you really could say a couple days a week. Ideally, you want to be in that 3 to 4 or beyond that range, but 3 to 4 is the sweet spot for resistance training.
I'd say 3 is a great number for most people, especially busy people who are trying to add in the cardio too. Like you don't have to strength train 5-6 days a week if that doesn't make sense for your schedule. And, over the years, there have been many phases where I've done 3 days per week and it's fine. I have not lost muscle. Like we're still good. I enjoy it more when we're in busier seasons. So again, make it fit your life. At least do 2. Even if you're somebody who is full blown endurance person and you love to run and you hate strength training is going to keep you injury free. It's going to keep you running for longer in your life and it's going to make you faster. So if you're not doing any strength training right now, it is so important to add in at least 2 days per week of that.
And it's funny, I've been all over 4 to 6 days per week when it comes to training, and the best progress I've seen, I can go back to a decade ago. There were a couple periods where I was training 4 days a week and it was more heavier powerlifting style. And that was when I saw a lot of my best progress. But I have been so mentally ingrained to the idea that more is always better. Like more. It feels better. I'm doing more. I'm going to see more progress. So I have usually spent my time training 5 or 6 days a week. About 5 months ago, I scaled that back to 4 again, literally because of time. Like I would rather balance time doing more cardio, focusing on mindset, doing mobility work, having more time with the kids, especially during these busier seasons with business. So I've been down to 4. And again, I'm back to seeing my most efficient progress aesthetically, performance-wise. So I know we're definitely all in the same boat. Most of us, we want to do more. We feel like if we have the ability to do more, we should, because that's going to give us a greater return on investment. Not always the case. So 3 to 4 really is a great place to be. 4 might be the sweet spot if you are pushing yourself hard enough within those sessions. So don't overthink it. Find your balance. There's your outline. There's your target. Sleep, 7 hours minimum.
Yeah, it's important. However, I will say if you're in the thick of the newborn phase or you have little kids who just don't sleep well, there's going to be days where you don't hit that. And I don't think that's a reason to not train. That I think that's something I actually have changed my mind on over the years, where we used to say, like, if you're not sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night, you don't train that day. If you abided by that, most of you are probably never going to work out. So I'd rather see you still work out and still gain the benefits there, because you're going to gain benefits from working out, like increase in energy levels. You're going to feel a little bit better, wake up a little bit more. It's going to regulate your mood. I'd rather see that and improve your sleep when you can, control what you can control with it. So if your kids are not sleeping well, but you're also staying up until 11, 12 p.m. watching TV, you're not controlling all the controllables. So you focus on what you can do. If you get woken up, that is out of your control, but at least you did the work and got to bed early and, focused on getting as much of that quality sleep as possible.
Water intake, pretty straightforward. 2/3 of your body weight in pounds in ounces. So very simply, if you weigh 100 pounds, that'd be 66 ounces of water. That's really a minimum. So if you're training, if you're active, you want to up that a bit more. Diving into the nutrition side. So we'll hit a few different points on nutrition. Fiber, 25 grams per day minimum, ideally working that up closer to 40 grams per day. And we've talked about this before. You want to go low and slow with fiber. So if you're at 10 grams of fiber a day, which is actually more than the American average, 7 grams a day, bump that up by 5 grams per day for that week. So from 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 20 to 25, 25 to 30, move that up, try to get that closer to 40, but low and slow when it comes to fiber.
We do have a fiber cheat sheet on our website, free download if you need ideas on how to increase your fiber. That isn't a fiber 1 bar, which we don't recommend. Nope. Go download that, get some ideas, sprinkle in some things to the meals that you're already eating, and watch how simple it really can be with a little bit of intention.
it is difficult to consume only 7 grams of fiber in a day. Your diet,
if you're eating mostly whole foods, it is difficult. If someone's eating mostly processed
no, I'm
foods,
saying that's what I'm saying. So you can have a very clear evaluation on your diet based on your fiber intake without even tracking. Just track one day, see where that falls. If you are in the sub 10 category, you have got a pretty atrocious diet.
I can guarantee you're eating mostly processed foods.
Everything's processed, highly processed foods.
That's
junk
what
foods.
I mean when I say processed.
So that's a very clear indicator and a wake-up call. Start there. See where you're at. Work it up low and slow. Protein. Very generally, what's going to work for most people is about 0.7 grams per pound of body weight.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good general starting point, especially if you struggle with getting protein in. Upwards of 1.3, I think it is fine if you need to go over. I know right now, being pregnant, I've been like craving protein. I've been eating probably close to that 1.3 grams per day, and usually I'm around the 1 gram per day, 1 gram per pound of body weight per day mark, and I feel really good. So if you're at that 0.7 and you want to go up a little bit, it's not going to be harmful either.
So circling back to diet as a whole, we just kind of hit on this with fiber, but really 90% of your diet, 90% of your calories should come from nutrient-dense foods. Ideally, most of those from whole foods, single ingredient foods, and you can combine those to make your own thing, especially snacks and stuff. Like when we started doing this granola, oatmeal kind of deal. My aunt does these granola balls, so I kind of use that as inspiration. So now in my oats, I'll have the natural cacao powder, a little scoop of peanut butter. Sometimes it's a giant scoop of peanut butter. Flax seeds, chia seeds. Sometimes I'll do like spirulina and chlorella, but sometimes I'll just throw that in my shake. Raisins. And it tastes like a peanut butter chocolate granola ball. Sometimes it's a banana in there too, but it's delicious.
And that's how many different plants?
Oats.
Chia, flax.
I'm going to count cacao powder. Chia, flax.
Berries. Do you add fruit in there? Sometimes.
For raisins. So like 5 to 6-ish, something like that.
In one meal, which is good.
In one meal. So create your own fun stuff. You know, instead of sugar, throw a little maple syrup in there. We do another ice cream thing. Instead of actual ice cream, it's the tri blend of frozen berries. So there's another 3, and then we'll do maple syrup. It's a little bit of milk, whole milk. Sometimes it's raw milk if you're not eating it. And like a splash of vanilla extract. So we're not adding sugars to anything. We get enough of that processed stuff when we do enjoy in moderation. Little things like that make such a big difference, guys. So again, 90% of calories from nutrient-dense options. Understand true moderation. Again, most people don't understand true moderation. It's not leaving it in your house and consuming it in small amounts frequently. It's leaving it outside of reach. Make that effort to go get it when you want it. That's moderation. Alcohol does not exist when we're talking about optimal health. You know, people will reference this this chart where 0, I think it's a J shape. So 0 to 2 drinks per week, there was an increased risk of health issues. Then you get to like 2 to 3 or 2 to 4, and it's like the lowest amount on this graph. And then it goes up from that point beyond those 2 to 4 drinks. And I might be wrong. It might be 0 is the first point where this elevated, and then 2 drinks is where it drops, and then it spikes back up to complete the J. That graph does not take into account the people who are not drinking, who have 0, currently have those comorbidities. They have those health issues, those pre-existing things. So it's not that they got sick because they don't drink. They don't drink because they got sick.
This is a prime example of people using studies to back up whatever they want to believe in. Like prime example.
Finding a reason, finding an excuse.
Alcohol is a toxin. Like we don't want to talk about toxins and people are freaking out about all that stuff. Like it doesn't matter how clean you eat. If you're drinking multiple times per week, that is a toxin. It's literally you ingest it and your body literally will do everything possible to halt every other thing it's trying to do to get that out of your system. So fat loss, muscle gain, like whatever you've got going on, everything is put on hold until that comes out. So keep that in mind. There's no benefit. It's not helping you sleep better. It's helping you feel like you're falling asleep better, but you're not getting deep sleep from it. There are no benefits to it. And
especially if you've got, for example, gut issues. I've dealt with this my whole life, and I have friends and family who deal with it who continue to drink. Like you are shooting yourself in the foot, and it must not be that bad if you continue to do those things to yourself.
No supplement will help you better any area in that regard if you're still drinking alcohol.
Cutting alcohol will be such a bonus for you. Now, that said, for those of you who feel great, you're maintaining, you want to enjoy, go out with friends, a couple drinks per week will keep the risk of adverse effects to a minimum. There are still risks. Don't act like it's risk-free. There are still risks, but we're not demonizing, like we don't support it. Like we've probably shifted even further along the spectrum of, rather than saying, oh no, it's fine, keep it in, whatever. Like you shouldn't.
We don't serve it at parties we have with people, like family events.
We don't bring it.
We don't have it anywhere around here.
But if you drink, you're not judged. So that's the point I'm making. No, it's not optimal for your health. We're not judging. We're just making the point that if you are working towards these goals and you're drinking, like don't be frustrated.
Through awareness, we create change. And if you are aware and still happy and thriving, then by all means.
There you go. A couple drinks a week to keep it to a minimum. Smoking is just a nope, obviously.
I think we can all agree on
nothing we have to dive in with
that.
Point. Stress management practices, 10 minutes a day. Yoga, breathing exercises, meditation. Go sit outside with your feet in the grass and just stare at a tree. Doesn't
Pray,
matter.
Read your devotional if that's your thing. Like
Gratitude
there are
journal.
so many different areas you can focus on with this, and you have to find what connects with you the most.
And you also want to pay attention to screen time and scrolling. It's a net negative in most cases, not just for our kids, but for ourselves as well. So if you just find yourself constantly scrolling, just start by asking every time you reach for your phone, like, do I need to do this? Is there something else I can be doing? And again, not to say you can't jump on Instagram and go check up on your friends, but if you find that every time you eat, every time you sit down, it's always in your face, and you find that your mental health is really shitty, and you don't understand the cause of a lot of these stresses, it can feel subconscious at a certain point where your face is buried in your phone, and that's the main reason for it.
I saw a funny meme. I think it was a meme or something the other day that was like, I was in an accident or saw an accident and I needed to call 911, but when I opened my phone, I clicked on Instagram without even thinking about it instead of calling 911. And that's probably true for 90% of the population right now.
It's just a habit.
So it's literally just a habit and something you will have to be aware of to break.
All right, guys, that's our list. That's a big old list you guys can work on as far as targets. You have plenty to dive into with that. Again, we have protocols and other episodes. You can use our freebies, SD Evolution, sd-evolution.com. Jump to our freebies page. A bunch of resources on there. If you are listening beyond the 3-episode, we get that 3-episode rule. Do us a favor. Once this episode concludes, just hop on over to reviews. Drop us a quick 5-star if you have not already. If you want to write a blurb, little paragraph, little couple sentences,
we read them
greatly
all.
Appreciated. We read them. Tag us on social media if you really enjoy a certain episode. Screenshot it, tag us, share it. We appreciate you. Let's see what else we got. We got the freebies on our site. We got the app. So for those who want some guided training programs, general advice in regards to all 5 pillars, that's going to be the app for you. For those who have been listening for a while, and don't just jump right into this, follow along if you're brand new, listen to some episodes, use some of those guides that grab you, try the app if you want. But once you get to a certain point and you say, you know what, I really want to jump into coaching, then apply for coaching. We'll get you scheduled for a call if it seems to be a good fit. And then the call will be basically confirming that it is a good fit. And we'll match you up with a coach who is going to help you. Not shortcut. There's no shortcuts. That's really
where we tailor everything to you. We take all of these pieces of the puzzle. We look at what your whole life looks like. And we say, okay, this is what we're going to focus on first. This is what we're going to implement as far as a program for training. We look at every single thing and help you navigate it.
So that's what we say in regards to saving time. There are no shortcuts. There's no magic pill. There's no silver bullet. But with a coach, you are shortcutting the trial and error. We've done this thousands of times with one-on-one clients and several thousand more through the app to just figure out, meeting you where you are, what's going to work for you, for your protocol, for your schedule, for your time, what you have available, and what you're responding best to. So we have a ton of analytics within our client software that tells us specific correlations and why certain things are happening, which allows us to get the most efficient results out of that. So if you guys are looking for some additional guidance, some additional tools, there's a few levels for you. Those are all linked in the show notes as well. We're going to shut it down here. Where can they find you?
I'm at Alessandra Skutnik.
I'm at Josh Skutnik.
Everything else is linked in the show notes.